I would say in romance, in love, you want what's best for the other person. Mm-hmm. In romance, you want the other person.
I believe that each and every one of us has the power within ourselves to create the life that we really want. And I want to help give you the tools to make that happen. I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm pretty intense. Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. On the show today is Gloria Steinem. Man, Gloria, an 85-year-old icon. She's a writer. She almost has she says she's a hard time pinning down exactly what her job is, but she's a writer. She's a feminist. She is a part of movements. And my goodness, she has some interesting and sometimes very simple perspectives on something that I don't know, I think we all want an answer, and sometimes the simple answer is not the one we want, but I think that's what the truth is. And I'm not going to argue with someone that's 85 years old. So she has a hell of a lot more experience than I do. So look, we talked about life. We talked about what's important. We talked about what the point of it is. And I hope that you find this just as refreshing as I did. Thanks for coming, Gloria. This is a really cool opportunity to talk to someone who has been so instrumental in leading the way by being strong with an opinion and not falling into the norms, really, which is the problem. The perpetuation of the problem is that you just kind of go with the flow. And so thank you for coming and being able to
I could say share. And do say exactly the same thing, because you really didn't go with the norms, okay? I talk about not going with the norms, and I do, I suppose, in my life, but not with the kind of immediacy and danger that you have done.
Yeah, well, I guess there's physical danger, but, you also are opinionated on things that create different danger. And, danger of judgment, danger of perhaps your own well-being on some level. I mean, look, you're standing your ground on stuff that people don't want people to stand their ground on, and that's why it is the way it is. I've always said to people that if you don't find what it is that's unique about you, you're not going to stand out, because you're never going to be the next someone else. Like anyone that wants to be, they say, I want to grow up and be like you. I said, you shouldn't want to grow up and be like me. You should want to grow up and be better than me, because that's the only way you're going to get it done. Well, and you should be yourself.
Yeah, yes, that's the key to it.
Right.
It's not better necessarily, but it's unique.
Yeah,
I think we each come into the world as a unique combination of heredity and environment, and that could never have happened before and could never happen again. And we share our humanity. So the whole idea is to be able to express what's unique in us and be supported by other people. We can't.
So how old were you when you knew that there was something unique about you and you had unique perspectives?
I'm not sure, because that requires self-consciousness. But I think it helped in a way that I didn't go to school very much until I was about, 12 or 13. So I was just reading books and assuming, that I could, follow my interest. I probably missed a certain amount of conforming because I wasn't in the classroom. And also, oddly, I don't know if this will make sense or not, but my mother and both my grandmothers were theosophists. And that means...
What is the definition of a theosophist?
Well, it just means God knowledge, but
okay.
It's a kind of spiritual God is in everything, not in one guy,
Good.
belief.
Okay, got it.
And they also kind of believe in incarnation, reincarnation.
Okay, got it. The Buddhist perspective.
So, yeah, sort of even pre-Buddhist, because
really?
Buddha is in a way monotheism,
right.
One guy.
Okay.
Yeah, so
okay.
this is...
Yeah. This is good. No, this is great education. I mean, this is also
God is in everything. Flowers, bees, people, all of nature, so on.
Does it have a name? Like,
Theosophy.
is it like okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like Gaia or like
No,
if there
it's,
was sort
it's
of like
generally
an energy.
known as Theosophy, and it was sort of, I think, began in the late 1800s, and it's still around. Now that I've told you this, you will see theosophical lodges in cities and so on.
I'll be looking for them.
Yeah. But because they kind of believed in reincarnation, then the idea was that your job as a family was to help this child become who they already were. And that is, very helpful, instead of saying you have to be just like Uncle Harry or whoever. Right.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it didn't keep my mother from occasionally saying, "You're just like your father."
What do you believe?
I think I believe that, that there's godliness, mystery, life, whatever you want to call it, in all living things. Mm-hmm. And we make up divisions. We make up gender. We make up race. We make up class. But we didn't always, actually. I mean, the old languages were here, and on Manhattan Island, and the Native American languages didn't have gender. They didn't have he and she. People were people.
Did they have name? I mean, they had a name, probably. Is that how they were addressed?
No, everybody had an individual name.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything unique about how they got their name?
I hate to generalize, because there were, like hundreds of different tribes and nations, but they often waited until the child did something unique and then named the child.
Because Native American names are fairly unique. They're,
that's how you got, like, running
Bear
with
of the
wolves
Forest
or something.
exactly.
Yeah. Because they did kind of wait until you did something unique, and then that was your name.
Wow.
But although you also had your clan name, I mean, you belonged to a clan. Right?
But like your family or your...
that was your second name, but you had an individual name.
Wow. That's
I think we're trying to get back there.
Yeah, because I do feel like there's an unlearning going on, where we're going back to even on simple levels of like farm to table food and growing things again, instead of the big box stores where you are eating fake food. Like there's a movement of getting back to where we were through all kinds of different channels.
No, absolutely. And the period of time that we are in, that is patriarchal, hierarchical, racist, gendered, is quite short. I mean, in this country where we are, it's 600 years. And people have been here for thousands upon thousands of years. So maybe this is a mistake.
Do you believe in, it's true, this could be a little hiccup we're having right now. Do you believe in reincarnation?
I don't know. I just say I don't know.
Do you feel like you ever have a sense of familiarity with situations, or a yearning or a love for something that you can't explain, or that's not like someone else, that you think, you know what, in another life?
Mm-hmm. I certainly feel that I'm suddenly in tune with something. And there was once a wonderful, huge novel called The Recognitions, which was all about this, by William Gaddis. And the whole premise was that you went through life and recognized things that you had known before. I don't know, but I do think, whether it has existed before or not, we suddenly find ourselves with a kind of consonance or understanding, or that goes along with whoever we are.
Mm-hmm. Could be an interconnectedness too, on a level that we don't understand, a metaphysical level that, obviously we can't see that, but that it's there, that we don't understand. How we become tethered to each other, how there, once there is some sort of interaction, you're forever intertwined with people and things and places.
Yes, we may be the result of all the food we've ever eaten, and all the people we've ever loved and known, and all the books we've ever,
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know.
I think about the world and it just blows me away, and I'm like, where did we come from, and what is all this, and what is the point, and where are we going, and where did we come from? But back to something that you brought up that for me is a really a topic that I talk about and think about regularly, and that is division, and how it kind of came to me with the whole divide and conquer. And in my mind, I thought divide and conquer was like, get a team together and go conquer the world. And now I look at it completely different. To me, divide and conquer is keep people fighting and disliking each other and away from each other. And they don't even know each other, and just give them a reason to not like someone else so that we can keep division. That way we keep people small and certain people stay in power. And so that's how I look at it now. But whether it's race, religion, your political views, shoot, the team you cheer for. I mean, there are so many things to create division, and I believe it's a great source of our disconnectedness from each other. We can just put a title on it. We don't have to get to know you because you're just a this.
Yeah, I agree totally, 100%. And I think that where it starts is controlling reproduction, and therefore controlling women's bodies. Because the paradigm of old cultures, that some of which are, of course, still with us, certainly where we all came from in Africa, the Kwai and the San, or the oldest cultures in India are the oldest ones here. The paradigm was a circle, not the pyramid. So the idea was that we were linked, not ranked.
That's a great reference, a circle versus a triangle.
Yeah.
The triangle has a top.
And once you look at it that way, a lot of things make sense, right? Yeah. And the first step, as far as I know, of every hierarchy in the world, ancient or new, is controlling reproduction, and that means controlling women's bodies.
Obviously, such a hot topic with abortion laws.
Yeah, it's still going on, and not to cite the ultimate, but actually it was the first thing that the so-called National Socialists, that Hitler did in Germany. The very first thing he did was first of all, he came to power on restoring, because there had been a lot of real democracy in Germany between the wars, and he came to power on restoring Kinderkirche, the traditional role of women, children, church, kitchen.
You were speaking the German version.
Yeah, and when he was elected, the first thing that he did was to padlock the family planning clinics and declare abortion a crime against the state, so that the doctor would be executed, the woman would be imprisoned, because she wasn't executed because she has the one thing that men don't have, which is a womb. And in prison, she could be forced to bear children.
So what would they do with these children?
Well, there's a whole movie actually called Hitler's Children. I mean, he was breeding Aryans. A part of it, of course, with him is self-hatred. Look at him. He's this dark, swarthy, he was, you could analyze him forever. He was probably half Jewish, been ashamed of it. Right? But the point is, the larger point, I think, for us to remember is that hierarchies start with controlling reproduction and therefore controlling women's bodies. And if there is racism, or as in India, caste, which didn't always exist in India. I mean, in the very old southern part, it came to mean, it means color, and it was imposed, right? Then it's much greater, because you have to decide who has children with whom in order to keep races separate or caste separate and so on, or visible at least.
They did this in, was this part of also even bloodlines and royalty and keeping things?
Yes,
Keeping
royalty,
farms in the family.
royalty is utter bullshit. There is no such thing as royalty, excuse me.
Yeah.
Royal blood. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a joke. No, the whole idea of kings and queens and all this hierarchical stuff.
Is the triangle.
Yeah. No, it's at least, you may need some hierarchies like a fire department to act quickly.
Well, I can tell you they don't want to get a cat out of a tree. I've tried that.
Yeah, or a surgical, no, but you need, for purposes of quick action, you may need a hierarchy, but the point is you're not born into that hierarchy. It's about competence. But the hierarchies you're supposed to be born into are all utter bullshit, to use a technical term.
Wow. Yeah, I believe division is a really is just an area that is lethal for us, and I think we got to get over that. Patriarchy is something else you mentioned, and being you being the leader of like women just being themselves and speaking up and saying what you want.
But here's the thing: I am also not the leader, and I am part of a movement.
Of course.
Yeah. So. We don't want to repeat the hierarchy,
Cycle.
if you know what I mean.
Cycle.
Yeah, right.
Look, you're
Right.
very helpful in the process. But who the hell ever decided that it was a man, not a woman? Or whoever decided to have someone in charge? Like, where did that come from? And how old is that problem? You said, 600 years maybe or something?
Well, on this continent, it's older in other places. But because the European colonists came here about 600 years ago,
So they just brought it
and the cultures that were already here were much more circular, democratic. I mean, our Constitution came from the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudenosaunee, who of course we left out women, but still the idea of consensus, of circles and of consensus, came from from here. It was already here, right?
So do you know the history of that, or how that was established? I guess I'm finally starting to just question everything, and even on a fundamental level. Men being in power and is like just a.
Well, no, of course it doesn't make sense.
It's ridiculous.
No.
So I'm like, I don't get that anymore. Like that just doesn't make any sense. Whoever decided that, and
no, and actually the masculine role is killing men. I mean, it may be harder for women, but it's not great for men either, because they're supposed to risk their lives and tension-related diseases and who knows. I mean, they're deprived of their own children. Part of the way that you become a whole human being is being able to, raise and love children and relate directly. It's not good. The roles are not good for anybody. Mm-hmm. That we figured out once that men would live 5 years longer without the masculine role, because if you just take out of the statistics the deaths that are due to danger, speeding, tension. So I always say to audiences of men, we can offer you more years of life. Who else can
do that?
Do that, right? And it's why there are men are feminists too.
Well, I mean, that's just the truth. There's masculine and feminine in every woman, and there's masculine and feminine in every man. And what it seems like is happening is that I believe there's a shift to men getting more in touch with that feminine side of them, and the woman of the masculine, right? Because the masculine gets things done and goes and does it, and the feminine sits back and kind of, they're both powerful.
We're becoming human. I mean, the whole idea of masculine and feminine is invented. I mean,
so how would you describe certain energies then? Certain
human. I mean, I don't know. I guess I would describe their content. Mm-hmm. Nurturing, patience. I don't know. whatever the quality is. But and sometimes I think the whole world is divided into two kinds of people: those who divide everything into two and those who don't. So I think it probably would be helpful to at least adventure into not dividing everything into two, because we aren't actually. And now and transgender and trans, young people now who are identifying with a group they are not viewed as being born into are very helpful, because it's beginning to do away with those bipartite divisions.
Do you think it's somewhat another division, though, like dividing the sections up even more? Or is it just about creating awareness that we're not all one or this, like this or this?
The first step is probably rejection of the existing divisions, and then you try to find yourself. So, I know what you mean, because I see, on campuses, I see young men, trans women, who are wearing things that I wouldn't wear anymore, if you know what I mean, because they seem too feminine. Mm-hmm. But that's just part of the process of change, probably, exploring.
Yeah, explain to me how do you change the assumed roles, identity, or just cultural understanding of something? Like, what does that process look like, and how long do you think that takes?
I think we're seeing it, don't you? I mean,
yeah.
I'm way older than you, so I just want to say that in my life, you were supposed to wear skirts and frilly things, and just the fact that we wore pants when I was growing up was a rebellion. That we didn't wear lipstick, I don't know, that we didn't wear high heels was people made endless fun of women's asses in pants when I was growing up, because they were not supposed to wear pants. So it's and men were supposed to be super macho in my neighborhood and all of that. So it's a process.
But is there a blueprint for it? Is there something where it's like, you come out hard, you wake people up, it's got to be dramatic, whatever it is that you're pushing for, whatever you're trying to pull the veil back on, and then they'll find a recenter from there? And there's no. I don't think there's a blueprint like that. I think there is a kind of not exactly a blueprint, but things you can do that are helpful. For instance, if you're in a situation, try to remember, especially if you say you're in a situation in which you have more power for some reason, then be sure to listen as much as you talk. And if you have less power, be sure to talk as much as you listen, which can be just as hard because you're not used to hiding. So, the means are the ends. Does that make sense? So if we use something as simple as that as a little democracy, we'll get to democracy, if you know what I mean. Okay.
Right.
So given that, there's a question of, all kinds of constructs that we have, do you believe in duality?
No.
Man, you keep it really simple. It's kind of refreshing.
No, I don't. But, I mean, you may be in a situation where there is a duality, but that is a particular situation. Life is not a duality. Life is infinite subtlety and circular, not either or. That's why I was saying, I think, there are two kinds of people, one who divides the world into two. And
yeah?
Yeah, no.
So they don't believe in the whole kind of light and dark and how that is applicable in all situations, essentially. No matter you're passing through your life.
Well, the day is not light and dark. The day is gradations of light and gradations of dark, and a circle and so on, and the sun moves around and the moon moves around, right?
So if it's circular, essentially, everything just kind of in that fashion, you must believe in reincarnation then.
No, I don't say I believe, because I don't know.
So where did we come from and where are we going?
I have no idea.
What are we?
Living in the present. Right here, right now. This is it.
What is us? Like, what am I? Am I just my body? Am I
no, obviously,
energy? Am I like what?
You're all of the above. I'm all of the above. No scientist has yet invented how to create a human being, and I don't think, right.
Yeah, there's cloning going on, right?
Yes, but that's not the same thing.
Pretty...
I mean, that's treating existing. I mean, that whatever this life form is, it's taken billions of years to get there. And no doubt we continue to evolve.
So what's the point?
The point is us right now, sitting here. This is it. Understanding each other, learning from each other, respecting each other, recognizing our both our differences and our sameness, having ahas of learning, which are great fun, having, the old cultures also recognized the importance of laughter. They always said that laughter is the only free emotion, because you can compel fear, obviously. You can also compel love if someone is isolated and dependent for long enough. You come to believe you're in love because you bond with somebody in order to survive. It's like the Stockholm syndrome.
You think that? Go into that. So love is...
Well, if survival is, is the key. So if somebody is, the Stockholm syndrome, as you know, was people who were actually in prison for a long period of time and dependent, and they continued to be attached to their...
They were happy there.
Well, they weren't exactly happy, but they were attached, and they worried about the welfare of their, because that's what we do to survive. But the point is that laughter can't be compelled. It just happens. It's like an orgasm of the mind, it just happens. And here, the Indian country cultures say that it breaks into the unknown. And if you can't laugh, you can't pray. Because it's a way of breaking into the unknown. Yeah, literally. You can't make you can't make someone laugh, actually. Really laugh. So it's a great evidence of freedom. And that can guide us, too. We should just not go any place we can't laugh.
God,
including
we should
church.
all just live by that.
Including church.
Write that down, as I'm sure you have. That is. So, what do you think about love then? Because the way you described laughter is the way I feel like love is described.
Mm. Well, hopefully that's also spontaneous and free and not compelled, and so on. Right.
Because you can fake laugh, which I'm every now and again accused like, you're fake laughing at me. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. You're right. I'm fake laughing at you.
Yeah, well, the very fact that somebody knows it's fake means a lot.
What?
Means there's no such thing as fake laughter, or they wouldn't be able to tell.
So then what's, so love, and you think about, there's lots of facets of love. There's love for, love for people. There's love for your family. There's love for your dog. There's love for things. Essentially, maybe shorter term, but there's a love for doing something. So what about relationships then? Is this a construct? Are we meant to find one person to share things with? Or is this just part of what I feel like you're describing is we're just here to have a human experience? Like we're here to laugh, we're here to love, we're here to experience and learn and share and grow. So is the relationship part of it something that we misunderstand about finding that one?
Yes, the idea of just one seems to have come about mainly, at least in Western culture, in Europe in points of time in which there was great emphasis on replenishing the population. The men were frequently in armies and going off. The amount of time that people were actually together was quite short. And so there was this intense time of romance, which is not necessarily the same as love, right?
True.
But the kind of mystique of love that we hear described. But I think I would say in romance, in love you want what's best for the other person. Mm-hmm. In romance, you want the other person.
Okay.
So it's more about possession.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so ultimately, you kind of want what's best for you because you're like, I just kind of want this.
Well, you're looking for what's missing in you, and the fact that we divide ourselves up into masculine and feminine means that men suppress their quote unquote feminine qualities, whatever that means, and we suppress our. So then we're attracted to each other because we're each incomplete. And this doesn't last, of course. True. Yeah, right.
Well, that's
better
if
two people are complete, they're way more likely to stay together.
That is the journey, isn't it? It is the journey to come to an arrival at yourself. A few years ago, spent enough time alone to start really figuring myself out, because we tend to conform to what we think we should based on our job or our family or our relationship, and there's so little quiet time now. I mean, you can, I find I'm totally guilty of it myself. You get a spare minute and you look at your phone. There's never quiet time. Mm. There's no time to reflect. There's no time to just quiet the mind and stop being populated with propaganda.
No, well, that's the purpose of meditation or whatever. I mean, it has many different names, but
do you have a practice?
No, I totally agree. And with meditation, I've gone to meditation. Do I meditate? No, I have to confess that I do not.
Do you do something that feels like it recenters you mentally?
Yeah, well, I value the freedom of living alone, and because I'm a writer, that my work is solitary. Mm-hmm. My idea of heaven is an editorial meeting, because you're all sitting around a table trying to think of stories or what's happening or what should be written or something, and it's a communal process, and I love that. I think.
So, do you believe in heaven then? And what do you believe heaven is?
No, I don't. I have no idea. I mean, why would I believe in heaven? No.
I didn't think you'd say yes. I just thought you said heaven. I was like, what?
No, my idea of what people think is heaven is not heaven. It's right here. It's sitting at a round table, not
Well, the good news is if you don't believe in heaven, there is no hell either.
No, the whole idea of heaven and hell seems to have come about from cultures that were trying to say, from monotheistic religions, and that were saying, okay, it's true that women give birth, and but we, as a patriarchal religion, can go women one better. We can give you everlasting life. That was not part of the old cultures. The old cultures were more like, you go to the other side of the mountain and join your relatives when you die. I mean, there wasn't this elaborate, worked out heaven and hell. That came with patriarchal religions taking the power of giving birth. I mean, there's a whole analysis, well, not just analysis, but I mean, where church architecture came from. I mean, I read this, I didn't make it up, right?
No, tell me.
There's an outer entrance and inner entrance, labia minora, labia majora, then there's a vaginal aisle up the center, 2 curved ovarian structures on either side.
Wow. Well, I don't have to ask you if you believe in symbolism then.
An altar in the middle, which is the womb, where the miracle takes place. where men dressed in skirts like women sprinkle imitation birth fluid over your head and say, though you were born of woman, an inferior creature, so you were born in sin, men, the patriarchal religion can do something even better than women do, which is give you everlasting life. And that seems to be where the idea of heaven came from. It's relatively new.
Blowing my mind.
No, but I mean, when you think about I'm not trying to oversimplify, but it's an insight, I think, that helps to understand why it is that women are not allowed at the altar, why women can't be priests, why a woman can't be pope. All of it, right?
You think it's going to change? Like, are you like, in time? Or
yeah, no, of course. No, I think so.
Could you even guess how long it would take?
No. But it's changed a fair amount because there are fewer believers in terms of numbers. I mean, they may be very devoted, obsessive believers in a hierarchical religion, whether it is Christian or Islamic or whatever it is. But just in general terms, say in this country, people are not as religious.
Yeah.
As
I've gone through my own journey with that too. And I mean, when I grew up, there was no religion. I mean, it was like my mom was a Lutheran, but we didn't go to church. We went to the racetrack on the weekends. And then I became Catholic through a relationship. And then that went away. And I was going to Baptist churches for a while with someone else. And then now I'm like, I saw something called omnism, which is the belief that no religion is true, but there's truth within all. And I'm like, that's perfect. Because they all seem nice, but none of them are, to me, like I can't just be all in with one of them. But I think that they're, in my mind, again, you put things in such a elegant way. Me, I'm a little chopped up. But look, it's like religions are somewhat institutions to make money, in my mind, or create division, or to it's a power thing. And I just think that there's good in all of them, but they took a turn at some point in time.
Well, I think what they all offer, which is really important, is a community, is being with other people, and we very much need to be together. I mean, it's why solitary confinement is torture. We need to find a community, and they provide that. But for myself, I make a distinction between religion and spirituality.
Yeah, me too.
So religion to me is a kind of institution with some chief and
punishment, rules.
Right. And spirituality is more like there's godliness in everything.
Yeah, that sounds like what you were describing more at first. Say it again?
Theosophy.
Theosophy.
Yeah.
I like theosophy.
Theosophy is God knowledge, literally, but they do kind of believe because they believe in reincarnation. And I mean, it's not all one. I don't want to oversimplify, what Theosophists said, but.
Well, you mentioned about community, and I know empathy is something that is, a core value to you, and something that you said we need, and we need more of. Can you talk about just why that's an important attribute?
Well, first of all, the human beings couldn't survive without it, because if you put a baby in the arms of anybody, male or female, we're flooded with oxytocin, which is the hormone that allows us to empathize. Or if we see an accident in the street and we want to help even though we don't know the person, that's being flooded with oxytocin and empathy. And human beings couldn't have survived all these thousands of years without that, without helping each other. And we apparently, as I asked my friendly neurologist, we only produce oxytocin. We only empathize when we're together with all five senses. So when we're looking at a computer screen, we can learn intellectually, but we can't empathize. As much as I love books, I have to admit that you can't empathize. You can learn, right? And again, as I was saying, that's why solitary confinement is torture. We can't be alone for, we need to empathize with each other.
So is this...
And part of of the huge increase in loneliness, depression, and suicide is you can trace to computers and iPhones. And, I read that Americans are now spending 11 hours a day on the average looking at a screen. That seems extreme to me.
That seems extreme to me.
But
I don't have a desk job that I would look at a computer, but, I do look at my phone frequently, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
so things are taking good turns, but that's not good. There's only more of that going on.
It's not good, and it does produce depression. And
so, what's the solution?
The kind of just common sense solution is to spend an hour with other people for every hour that you're spending looking at a screen.
I know you don't believe in hierarchy, but I elect you for president.
No.
Because you have just such a simple but yet perfect way to look at things. It's just simple. It's like, hi, go spend some time with people.
Yeah, well...
Stop looking at your screen.
Yeah, right.
But do you think that this is something that the regular human is aware of?
It's the reason, for instance, we still have theater and we still have concerts, because at least, even though there is not a chance to sit in a circle, which is the best, the most classic human organization is sitting in a circle and taking turns talking and listening, and everybody gets
the Native Americans and the teepees.
Yeah, but at least we're all in the same room.
Right.
And that still has a magic.
Right. People want to be part of something. Generally, I think there's a yearning for that, right? There's a yearning for being in community with someone, a part of something, doing great things, growing, learning, sharing.
Well, just being with other human beings.
But there's so much less of that. Like you said, there's people looking at their TV screens. There's people, now we just sit, God knows we have all the TV we could ever want. You can watch any and every show you want in any platform now. There's everything from, of course, cable to, DirecTV to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Apple, you name it. There's so many platforms. There's just there's more information, but less ways to connect. So, look, people are going to get this information through these platforms. So, do you still put that connection above the information?
It's not either or. It's just that for every hour that you're sitting by yourself looking at something that is inanimate, you probably need an hour like we're sitting here together, right?
So do you think that we just get... we get in bad routines or we get addicted too easily? Because it's hard to turn that off. As a cognitive aware person, I let it slip and I am actively trying to, I don't even watch the news anymore. I get up and I'll watch YouTube videos on things that I'm interested in, topics I'm interested in, try and learn, but I don't even watch that anymore. And I still do it. I still turn my phone on and, look at it and forget to...
I know, but you have invented something here, which means we're here. Yeah. Right. So you're doing both. It doesn't have to be either or, it can be and.
That's why you put things so simple. You're right. It is the information. It's selecting the right information then, right? It's putting in front of you what it'd be great if people spent their time listening to this podcast then.
It's not selecting the right information. You don't know what I'm going to say. You didn't select my information. I don't know what you're going to say. But we're here spontaneously, listening to each other, learning from each other. Right.
Yeah. Very true. So there's a main topic that I'm a little perplexed on, and that's the topic of feminism. And I had to even look up the definition. Like, that's literally my awareness level for feminism.
That's okay.
I believe in all
That's
those
right.
things.
Right,
The thing is I believe in all the things that it stands for, yet I wouldn't call myself a feminist.
Well, you get to choose, right, to call yourself whatever you want. You might say feminism is remedial, because we live in a patriarchal culture. So we live in a racist culture, so people talk about black movements and civil rights.
It's kind
we
of pointing out your difference.
No, it's point. It's if you come together when one group is powerful and the other group is not, you come together in a hierarchy. So you need a movement, whether it's against racism or sexism or whatever it is, so you can come together at the same level. And that's all that feminism is. So men are feminists just as well as women are feminists, right?
Because it's a matter of believing in those values,
right,
and being an activist on some level to make that a reality.
Right.
Right? So anybody can be that person.
Right. So it isn't, we all get to choose our words, whatever it is that we want.
Describes us.
But in my heart, I kind of fear that if we don't understand we're feminists, we're being masochists. Because we're putting up with an unjust system. Or you can use different. Womanist is another word, or egalitarian. I mean, we don't all have to choose the same word. Right?
I mean, you're kind of revolutionizing the way I've thought about a movement, and that's like that I haven't really thought about a movement being. A movement points out what's different about you, and the more you talk about something, the more real it is. And I've lived my life in a man's world, but I've never done anything to try and highlight. I'm not trying to, be on an all-girl race team, or I'm not trying to. I used the attributes I had to help with sponsorship and to be able to do my job. But I was never one to because I still had to do it regardless. And the pay equality was difficult because I got paid more than most guys.
Are you glad to see other women able to do what you do?
Sure.
All right, that's feminism.
But it doesn't make me, it's not like I'm thinking to myself when I see a woman out there, I'm not thinking, yeah. I'm thinking someone is following their dreams. And I believe in that.
That's a big That's a yeah.
But it could be for a man too. I could have the same you're from a small town, you don't have a famous last name,
But if you've been kept out of the race because you're female, or because you're black, or because you're Asian, or because you're gay, or because then you're left at the starting line.
I didn't have to go through that period of time.
So what's it like now? Is it 50-50 women?
No, no. There was one girl in the Indy 500 this year. We had as many as 5 one year, which was a lot. But that's it. Sometimes there's none. I actually made the mistake of saying last year there wasn't. Oh yeah, that was me. I was the one in it last year. But yeah, there's no females on the regular circuit as far as IndyCar and NASCAR at the highest level.
What made you want to do it?
So it's interesting because I wouldn't say that I love racing. That wasn't my motivating factor. Actually, my dad said, he's like, you need a job and you were good at it. What I loved about racing was that I loved setting a goal and achieving it. I loved the journey. I loved the hope. I loved hoping that every single season I started was an opportunity to do better than the year before. And I just loved that progression. So the joy is in the journey was something that was so true for me. So for me at the end, I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to do better than I had done. And so for me, the part I loved was gone. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. And I'm someone that is okay with change. So I was able to move on at a young age.
Do you think, what made you pick this field?
Racing? Probably my dad. My dad raced when he was younger, and then My sister actually was the one who wanted to start go-kart racing. She quit within a few months of starting because she didn't enjoy it, and basically got driven over the top of. So she didn't like that. And so I kept going and, made a career out of it. But I mean, it really does come from my dad, and he still loves it. He still loves it more than I love it. He's the one that still goes to the track, even though I'm not out there. And he's like, he arrives and goes, see ya. And he goes and runs around and does his mingling and is like, I think he.
Well, I do think we do what we see.
Yeah.
We need role models, and, we, as they say, we have to see it to be it. So you saw this in your father and were able to do it and enjoy it and so on. And now you've gone on to do things your father doesn't do. Yeah. He doesn't sit here probably.
Right. No, he doesn't. No. Okay. I interviewed him and I was like, I'm trying to go deep on him. I'm like, Dad, and this and that. He's like, nope. I'm like, okay. It's just, he doesn't go deep like that. Mm-hmm. What do you think about nature versus nurture then?
What do you mean?
Like, you're born with certain qualities, as in you remember those qualities, maybe.
No, it's both.
Versus what you see.
I think it's both. I don't think. Once again, I think the world is divided into two kinds of people: those who divide everything into two, and those who don't. Okay, so it's not.
So you divide a little.
It's not nature versus nurture. It's nature and nurture. Right. So we come into the world as a unique human being. You can't change that. You can frustrate that. You can break that. You can develop that. You can love and glorify that. You can do a lot of things. But you can't change completely the unique person who came into the world.
Do you think you can change a lot?
Not change. You can choose which part to develop, maybe. Right. Obviously, our childhoods are very, very important because our brains are not completely developed until we're in our early 20s. So, we're still making connections and synapses, and I mean, the brain is physically growing for long years after birth. So we're way more influenced by our childhood than other animals who are independent much sooner. Foals, horses, the little newly born horse gets up and walks around right away. People do not do that. Yeah,
within
right.
Like 30 minutes.
Yeah, right. So that, because the human brain is so big and it can't get through the birth canal, a lot of it develops in childhood, and that makes us very vulnerable to the influences around us. But it's also true that you can't completely change the person who is there in that baby. There's a person inside every baby.
The essence of the person.
Right.
I heard something that in our first 7 years that we're alive and the last trimester of pregnancy as a baby, that is your subconscious programming. And after that, you have to go in and reprogram. Which would explain why it's really difficult to figure out why you have certain patterns, I feel like, because you're like, I don't remember being 4. But there are certain things that we do where we're probably dealing with old stuff that we don't remember. I'm very interested in the human mind and the ability to reprogram and the ability to program, the ability to create our world.
I don't know if program is subtle enough, though, as a word, do you think? I mean, we, as infants, we need to be held. We need... Right. It's very, very sensory. We need faces to look at, to connect to. Babies also empathize right away, even with other babies. If you put babies together, they will, touch each other, smile at each other, share food. you know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I've seen that.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of comforting to think that
Are they more
empathy
connected
is
to
already
another
there.
baby than they are to an adult? Do they find, is there more empathy for another existence just like theirs, or is there because
You know, I don't know. I don't know if there's any such experiment. I have no idea.
mm-hmm.
But there is something about babies that want to look at another face. I don't know. Right at their parents' face,
mm-hmm.
another baby's
mm-hmm.
face. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
mm-hmm.
we are filled with oxytocin from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. We
Mm-hmm.
empathize. We want to touch. We want to learn. We
mm-hmm.
want to. Right. We can't. Babies that are isolated don't develop if they're left in a crib, even though they're fed. Yeah, no, there have been terrible instances of in Eastern European countries that were trying to force, and perhaps other places that were trying to force women to have a lot of children and keep them in cribs and, you know, a kind of an almost industrial production. It was tragic because the kids didn't develop as they should have. Right?
This kind of brings me back to almost what you said. It was what you said at the beginning about not going to school for a long time until you said 12, 13.
Well, I would go until it got cold, and then we would get in our house trailer and go off.
But that my understanding is that you didn't really think about the differences between people and being a woman until you started going to school, and then it all of a sudden became something important. And
well, I thought about. I mean, I was with my family. I had an older sister, 9 years older. I had my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I was with grown-ups, which probably gave me a vocabulary that was off-putting to my to other kids.
I can imagine.
So you learn, you know, not to do that. But I don't think I mean, of course, what I was reading was very gendered too. Because if even if you're reading Louisa May Alcott and Little Women, which is a whole society of women, you still notice that it's the men who's going off to war and the women who are binding up the wounds, and I was certainly exposed to gender.
Yeah.
But I wasn't constantly being told you can't do that.
Right.
You know, you can't wear that because, I mean, I remember being taken into an old department store to buy shoes, and somebody was trying to get me to buy Mary Jane's. You know what Mary Jane's are?
Yes,
Right.
they came into fashion about 10 years ago again.
and I wanted red sneakers. And no way was I going to wear this. So, you know, that was partly a result of just, right. And I wanted a cowboy hat, and I wanted
what
all
did
these.
School do then? What did school do to make you go, oh, I mean, I'm not supposed to do that? I'm not supposed to have red shoes?
Well, you know, the classic primer in my era and for many years after was a Dick and Jane. It was literally two characters named Dick and Jane. And Dick was the active one going up the hill, and Jane was trailing at me, you know. It was all about gender. And they were very white, these kids.
So that was that the vibe, or was this just the curriculum? I mean,
it's the curriculum. No, it's the curriculum.
So do you think there's a problem with it?
Of course. Yeah. No, because it limits people. I mean, you know, we still have big problems with textbooks because, you know, there's still, textbooks are partly written by who orders them.
Exactly.
And Texas, I think, is the biggest orderer of textbooks. And not everybody in Texas is always happy that the South lost.
So they might rewrite it.
It's not exactly, but it may be written in a different way, you know, as to what the war was about.
Have you read I haven't read it, but I know about the book. But 1984, have you read that book?
Mm-hmm. That was Orwell, so that was a different, yeah.
But it was talking about basically being able to rewrite history, like as a again, I haven't read the book and I do want to read the book. It was actually in a hotel room in New York City, and it said, if you want to be a rebel and take this book, we'd love you to take it. Like, it'll be $10, but and I was like, this is a sign. I should take this book.
It was 1984.
It was the 1984 book.
Well, George Orwell was warning against the conformity of communism that he saw arriving on the scene, and trying to make a case for the uniqueness and individuality that was being sacrificed, right?
Wasn't there a portion of it that had to do with basically writing history, like being able to have the ability to rewrite the memories of stories as they're going in the way that someone wanted them to be?
Yeah, no, the state, big brothers, the state was rewriting everything, and you got the version that they wanted you to have instead of what you actually experienced.
Right.
I mean, he created a dystopian society in order to warn people away from totalitarian methods.
Right. Do you have a favorite book? There are a couple of them.
Oh gosh, but there are too many to. I mean, I have favorite authors. I mean, Alice Walker is one of my favorite authors because her poetry and her novels, and she somehow includes everything: people, nature.
If I wanted to read a book about way to live life, like a guide almost, what would be a good book for that?
Yourself. No book.
Be a good author.
No.
Of my own story.
No, just what do you love to do? What do you love? What do you love so much you forget what time it is when you're doing it?
Yeah.
That's a good way of learning that that's what you're supposed to be doing.
How do you have the energy at the
85.
Brig young age of 85?
Right.
To, as I've read, have a dozen projects going on at one time. I mean, that's just, I don't have a dozen projects and I'm 37. So, and I feel like I'm really busy right now. Tell me.
But you have a lot of projects. No, but
how do you manage?
Because I love it. I don't manage very well. I'm not saying I'm always late with my deadlines. I have to live to 100 just to meet my deadline.
Well, inspiration is natural.
But it's because two things. One, I'm doing what I love. And two, I get seduced by the idea that maybe we could solve this if we did this and that. It's so interesting. You look at a problem and you think, okay, maybe if we did this or that or the other thing, and if you called this person and if they only knew each other, and if it's fun. It's just infinitely interesting. And also you're fueled by unfairness. When you see something that is just completely unfair, it just makes you mad enough to try to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Strong motivation.
Yeah. No. Right. I mean, maybe you could have predicted your life a little bit more because you saw what your father was doing and it interested you and you wanted to do it. But probably from now on, you won't be able to predict your life either.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right, because there was some kind of a model for it. A way to see it.
Yeah.
You said that we believe it when we see it, essentially, right? Didn't you say that earlier? Something about that? Something.
Well, you have to see it to be it.
See it to be it.
Yeah.
So
you don't know it's possible always unless you see it. Yeah. Right.
So, because I believe that essentially, like, when I believe it, I'll see it, which is maybe not exactly the same on the flip side, but what do you think about that? What do you think about the power of believing in something so much that I'm just going to manifest or force something?
What's an example? I mean, believing in something you've never seen?
Visualizing and seeing something through. Like, let's say my winery. When I was standing on the knoll of Quintessa in 2006, swirling my white wine before noon. I may have been before 11 even. And I looked down the valley and I thought to myself, I want to have something like this someday. I don't have $50 million right now, but someday I might. And I'd love to have something like this someday. And I started dreaming into what that looked like, and I have it. And it didn't cost $50 million, thank God. But I started dreaming into it, and I started visualizing it, which this is why it's not an exact flip, because I saw something I liked, and then I just started visualizing how I wanted to see it.
Well, I think that's
way.
Yeah, I mean, you saw something that was possible. I mean, maybe if you never, ever, ever, ever saw a vineyard, you might not have
had the idea
or wanted to, because we need a little, But then you could take that idea and make it your own. So you see it to be it, but you also make it your own.
Well, what did you see then when you were younger that made you go, men and women are just construct? Like, why are we?
Well, I didn't think that when I was younger. I mean, you kidding me? No, I didn't. It took me a while to figure that out. I mean, I for years, well into till I was 40, at least, I kept thinking, okay, I'm going to do what women are supposed to do. I'm going to get married and have children and live that life, just not right now. So I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And one day I realized I was happy. And fortunately, the whole of feminism came along and said, not everybody has to live the same way. It's okay. And it's not better or worse, it's different. You can, you don't all have to do the same thing.
I'm going to read a part from your bio, the introduction for your book, which I love the title, "The Truth Will Set You Free, but First It Will Piss You Off," and a book of quotes.
Yes, I'm just...
And I love quotes.
Right.
In my book, which I might as well just hand it over to you right now. There's an ambitious workout program in there and some other things, but the first 5 chapters are more mind-body connected. But I have a chapter on mantras, quotes, even developing your own. There's like a mantra marker at the end of it where you can kind of create some, put down some attributes that you love to create something that's meaningful to you. So
okay,
look,
well,
I'm just saying that
this may help me to
I don't think so.
To meditate,
I think it's
have a mantra. Thank you.
A little remedial for you, maybe, but the point is that I love quotes, and I'm really excited about this book. But I thought I would kind of this sort of towards the end of the introduction. I love this part. This is talking about sort of the you're talking about the patriarchy kind of world we live in, and the difficulties that it produces. So just as the family and the source of everything from violence to democracy, it's also a teaching lesson here. For a woman in a violent household, the most dangerous time is just before or after she escapes. This is when she's most likely to be injured or killed. Why? Because she's escaping control. The majority of this country are escaping control of old hierarchies of race and gender and more. This means 2 things. First, we need to be aware and look after each other. Love that. Second, we may be about to be free. I mean, that's the truth. That was when I read that, I'm like, I circled it. I'm like, I love that.
No, I'm so glad, because I think that, from looking at the microcosm, you learn the macrocosm. And I think,
sure.
From looking at domestic violence, I began to see that. And I think part of what we have not done is to, or at least not done enough, is to recognize that the most dangerous time is after a victory. Because you are about to be free. And I mean, for instance, lynching did not happen during slavery. It happened after emancipation. And the whole time of Reconstruction after emancipation was about reinstituting economic slavery and using lynching and so on to do that. And I think in our current situation, we didn't understand that well enough, because just in general, the social justice movements, all of them, and the environmental movement and so on, have changed the majority opinion in this country. And on top of that, we had 8 years of the Obama administration. So why didn't we anticipate that a third of the country that still believes in the old way and feels deprived of the old hierarchy and, I mean, not to oversimplify, but that's a lot of the reason, was going to be in bad? I don't think we understood that. We celebrate a victory without understanding that there's going to be a backlash.
Mm-hmm. Well, looking after each other in all of my travels and all the people that I've met and all the differences that exist, what I always find is a good human. Like, for the most part, look, there are some bad ones, but for the most part, when you travel and when you meet new people and whatever side of the duality you're on, like,
there is no wait.
Sorry, whatever side of the this or that, whether it's Republican, Democrat, or whether it's American, or you find good people, right?
You find good people. I'm just objecting.
Look after each other.
I'm just objecting to the duality part.
Okay, scratch that, strike that.
No, I mean, you don't have to scratch it, but I would just say that dualities are based on masculine and feminine, or black and white or whatever, which is part of the problem, not the solution.
The point is to look after each other, right? Like that, take care of each other. We all have the same goal in mind usually, which is be happy, be joyful, find peace. Mm-hmm. And then the second being, we're about to be free. I mean, look, the only way to the other side is through, we have to go through. When you're in the middle of it is probably almost the most hopeful time, because it means you're on the way. And so it's a hopeful time for sure. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could... And
which is, I'm not so good about this. You probably, given your profession, are better. Living in the present. Instead of, because our minds get occupied with what if in the future, or why did I do that in the past, or whatever. And it happens, you can only be fully alive in the present.
Yeah. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about that. And it's, I listen to him and I love listening to his voice. It's so entrancing. And, but when he's talking about it, I think, but I won't get anything done there. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, but if I'm just in the present and nothing is happening, I won't get anything done there.
Yeah, no, but you will, because you will be building the block of the next thing. And, rather than divided, half your head is in the future. And
maybe when I drove, I was able to be in the present better.
Yes,
and it was
sure.
a form
It sounds
of meditation
to me. Yes, right. It sounds to me like a great form of meditation.
You can't. You don't have any time to think about anything else.
Yeah, you absolutely have to be there. Yeah. No, I think that's terrific. Right.
So I've taken a lot of your time, and I appreciate it. But maybe you could kind of give to me your grand vision of how, if you were to able to cast your magic wand and say, this is what I hope mankind looks like, womankind, humankind. Let's give it a non-name. Let's give it a humankind.
Yeah, that's a very good name.
How does it look? It's not a very good name.
Well, it looks like a circle that does not only contain humankind, but all the plants and animals and all the living things on Earth. And there is at least the beginning of an understanding that we are all linked in a circle. We are not ranked like this.
Yeah. Right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Gloria.
No, thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.